And then we say, inky dinky do, a whole bunch more math.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax, HIPAA help is on the way.
This is Valerie Williams from Arthritis and Rheumatology of Georgia in Atlanta, Georgia. And you are listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast.
Thank you for that intro. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs and Security First IT. And joining me today and every day is Donna Grindle. Garden.
Every day.
Seems like it.
I know. Yeah. You are known as my work husband around here.
Maybe we should do a daily show.
No. At least not one where we don't just start talking.
Yeah, there you go. So today's episode is going to be pretty interesting because we're talking about maturity assessments, which just makes me laugh that we're talking about maturity.
Yeah, the people who know us generally would not say we were experts on maturity, but it is when it comes to privacy and security. This
is true. Well, there's a difference between being mature and assessing maturity.
There is that.
But before we dive into all that, do you have any places you're going to be mature at coming up?
Well, I am doing, let's see, when is this one? This one comes out the end of May, I think. So I'll be doing the Lunch and Learn with Medicus IT on June 13th. If you're interested in attending that, give me a holler. I'm going to talk about patient record release fees for medical practices. So shoot me an email if you want to get the link to that. And being going to be in Secure World Atlanta on
SeaWorld.
May 29th. SeaWorld. That's kind of like the nerd SeaWorld.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Secure World Atlanta on May 29th and 30th. I'm so excited to attend. If you're going to be there, let's connect, have a chit chat, get nerdy with it.
That's one way to look at it.
Well, yeah. We can enjoy the time, already planning my agenda and all the different sessions I want to sit in on, and I'm indecisive, and it's exciting.
Yeah. I always hate it when they make you make choices. Just, do everything for everybody. I don't want to, and then they'll say, we'll give you the videos later, Now I've got to commit again.
To watch the videos.
Yeah.
Yeah, and somehow that doesn't happen as often as one would like.
No, it doesn't.
So before we get going into our topic for the day, we need to do a little public service announcement. Yuck. No, Are you frustrated with your current IT provider? Are you sure you're getting the security and protection you need? Are you putting your patients and your practice at risk? If you're in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, give Security First IT a call to learn more about how they can protect your patients, your practice, and your bottom line. Find them online at securityfirstit.com or call 980-288-5100. Now we're back from the break. Welcome back.
We got to give them a minute. They're calling. All right. Once you're done with your call to Security First IT, now let's talk about maturity assessments. So, typically our topic comes from something that's happening in the news or happening in the business. So where did this one come from? Because I'm really kind of trying to figure out how you came across maturity assessments.
I've been talking about it with people, and it's like people don't get it when we're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And that we'll say, do you do this? And they'll say, yes. And we'll say, okay, does that mean it's included in your training? Do you have policy and procedures? And well, why are you asking that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just having paperwork does not mean you're secure.
Right.
Compliance does not equal security. Security does not equal compliance. We say it over and over. But the most important thing is that if you have a program, a privacy and security program, period, you should be evaluating how well you're doing. And if you have risk management plans and you're supposed to be doing things, you can say on this particular risk, this is our plan. But if nobody's paying attention that you're actually doing the things in your plan and preparing for things, well, there you go.
Right. So with the maturity of security and the assessment around that, what we're looking at really is not answering the question of, do you have XYZ, but rather, how well is XYZ working for you? So you don't just have security, but what type of security do you have? Or are you following security or whatever? So
yeah, we always talk about how you're supposed to have a culture of privacy and security in your organization where it's just baked into what you do. And you start with, we got nothing or we're confused, but ultimately that's the goal.
Right.
And if you're not going in between those two and paying attention to see that you're progressing towards your goal, you're probably not progressing towards your goal.
Right. Where this kind of fits in for us in IT is oftentimes we'll say something like, do you have security? Well, that's a big question. And everybody says yes, right?
Right.
Because they're running the free antivirus that they put in their computer 6 years ago that's never been updated. And so a maturity model or a maturity awareness, or a maturity assessment would give us the ability to come in and look at that at a deeper level to figure out, how good is what you call security, or how good is what you call your policy or procedure or training or any of those other things.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can look at it from a portion of the security and privacy program. You can look at it as the organization as a whole. You can look at it based on specific threats within your risk management plan. There's a lot of different viewpoints that you can utilize. And there are some very complicated ones out there. I'm a fan of the NIST CSF, the cybersecurity framework, and it has implementation tiers.
Yeah.
So you're trying to improve up the tier level. SANS has a really simple security awareness, I guess, ranking, low to high. There's one that's called C2M2 that the Department of Energy put out because, the electric grid, we kind of worry about them a little bit. We should worry about them more.
Yeah. You wouldn't be able to hear the podcast.
We would do a lot of things without electricity. And SecureWorks, they have now come out and said, we've got this big maturity model, and they do their own. And there's organization after organization that define what your maturity is in certain areas, and they're looking at it differently. And there's a managed service provider called Cypher, and one of their free resources is they do 5 questions, but it's about 20 different things that you're supposed to be doing in your security program, and it's 5 questions about this, 5 questions about that. But essentially, it's the same concept. Is I'm looking to see, it's kind of like when you tell your kid to clean the room.
Yeah.
And they came out and they said, I cleaned the room.
Yeah.
I did it. Okay, did you go in and you see the door is bulging open on the closet and the bed is higher up by another foot? And so it's the quality of I did it that you're really concerned about. And to them, they did it.
Right.
And so it's that assessment. So what we want to do is we're telling you to clean up your room, your privacy and security room. And then when we ask if you've done it and you say yes, then we're going to go look and see what's in the closet. Is it organized? What's under the bed? And did you vacuum? Or, where's that dirty underwear? Where'd you hide that? Having nephews. And I know you get it with all the boys. So.
Oh, yeah.
But the bigger picture is if I'm not looking at the quality, then either the kid came out and said they cleaned the room, and if I don't go look, they may not have even shoved it in the closet, or, it was not done to perfection, which I'm not looking for perfection ever. Otherwise, I wouldn't tell a kid to do it. But
or your clients.
Yeah, or the client. I don't expect perfection out of my team. I expect us to constantly be working to be better. And that's essentially what you're trying, is, with the cleaning your room analogy, you're teaching them, hopefully before you tell them to clean the room, what that means. And then checking to see if they've actually done it, how well. So if you start when they're younger And everybody does the Barney song, "Everybody clean up." I used to have to sing that stupid song.
Oh,
I
Lord.
know. It worked, though. I had one nephew that all you had to do was sing the song. He'd start putting away things. I was like, that's awesome. But
Didn't work with my kids. They're like, they sang some kind of Kill Barney song or something.
of
I don't
course,
remember what it was.
again, with the maturity issues.
Exactly.
You passed it on.
Yeah, I passed it on.
So let's look at, one of the, what I considered a simple way to kind of give you an example is the SANS Security Awareness Maturity Assessment.
Okay.
And it's a really cool little swoop diagram with an arrow going up, and it starts at like non-existent
Mm-hmm.
and goes to compliance focused, promoting awareness and change, long-term sustainment, and then metrics where you're actually really measuring it. And when I'm looking at the maturity level, I don't want to know what the metrics are. I just want to know that you're doing the metrics. So it's a kind of a different thing. If I'm not looking for you to prove things, I'm looking for you to show what things you have in place to attain your goals.
Right.
And we run into that a lot where there's a little bit of confusion between the two. But all those programs that are out there that are about, compliance, check the box, HIPAA easy, run the scan, check the box stuff, which we always talk about. Cardin is not, we don't do check the box compliance. If that's all you're interested in, we're really not a good fit because it will drive us insane.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really not a fan of just spinning my wheels. We're more interested in building a privacy and security program that protects, your business, your patients, your clients, your staff. There's more to it than just PHI, and you start to grow it outside that.
Right. But I think this is where the maturity assessment kind of really comes in and allows somebody to understand better. Like when you take Cardin, for example, how you're doing things differently. So you're not coming in and saying, yes, you have a training program, you have policies and procedures that we printed out online, you have these things. A maturity assessment model allows you to come in and measure the quality of those things. And then the clients are now better understanding, it's not just the minimum necessary. You're actually doing things that's above and beyond the floor. It's like I tell some of the clients and I come in, I'm like, look, we have to reach up to grab the floor, and you're saying that's where you want to be is on the floor. No, we got to get you a lot higher than that.
Yeah, that's exactly what you're talking about. So the explanation of it, I thought was really good. The Lance Spitzner is the director of SANS Security Awareness, and he wrote a really nice series of articles explaining that process of how you would evaluate just the security awareness piece. We're just saying, is your organization aware of the threats and trying to do things to prevent them? That's all they're looking at, is that, 30,000 foot kind of thing.
There's a lot of people that's not even here. Like, when I give talks, a lot of times when I start bringing up things like business email compromise and not really ransomware, most people hear about that, but some of the other things that are kind of bigger that we deal with day in and day out, most people, their eyes glaze over. Like, never heard of this.
Yeah. Not even aware. Which brings us to level 1. There's no security awareness program. That one's pretty straightforward. No attempt to train and educate. People don't know that the organization has policies and procedures, or you don't have them.
Mm-hmm.
People don't understand they're a target. How many times do we hear, I'm not a target?
All the time.
Yes, you are. We are all targets. And they really are leaving themselves super vulnerable, that they don't understand they should even worry about these things. Elizabeth, that started working with us in December now, has become super paranoid. She's unplugging stuff, changing passwords. Her household is up in arms because she's now become cybersecurity aware.
Yeah. Yeah, there's that, blue pill or red pill, right?
Yeah. Which one? But his point was, 30% of the organizations he sees, 30% have absolutely no program.
Okay.
That's a high number. But again, he's not looking at just healthcare. In healthcare, that shouldn't even occur.
Yeah.
HIPAA requires you to not even be there.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to say people aren't there, but you and
I thought 30% was pretty high.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But that's looking at all industries.
Yeah.
In healthcare, you shouldn't have anybody there.
Shouldn't.
I mean, it's against the law to be there, technically. But he also pointed out that he finds organizations that are a level 2, which is, the compliance focused. And he says, this may be a good thing, but then again, not, is what he's actually saying.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is all designed around compliance or audit requirements, nothing else.
Yeah. And that's what we hear a lot. I need to be HIPAA compliant. I need to be PCI compliant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's a bigger conversation. We
Right.
don't just want to hit a compliance mark. We actually want to change the way you're doing things.
Yes. There's an attempt to change the culture and the way you do things. And this is where he says training is limited to annual
Yep, there you go.
or ad hoc basis, such as on-site presentation once a year or quarterly newsletters.
Mm-hmm. We talk about that a lot. We've said it a million times on this podcast that there is no way you're going to create a culture of anything in your business doing it once a year.
Yeah, you're checking a box.
Yep.
You're checking a box. There is no attempt to change behavior. Employees are unsure of policies or their role in protecting the information assets or to identify and report an incident.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says, to be honest, this is where I find most organizations are at. And hopefully, again, healthcare is not even supposed to be here,
Right.
but many of them are.
Oh, yeah.
He points out it creates a false sense of security. Again, compliance is not security.
Mm-hmm.
In reality, you are most likely just as vulnerable or have the same amount of risk as somebody that has no program at all. You just don't realize it.
Yeah, we actually see this a lot with businesses that are trying to do PCI compliance because they'll have this thing that runs a scan, like the external vulnerability scan. It comes back and says, great, you passed. but they don't realize that that's one small thing in a huge list of things that has to be done, but they see you passed and that's all they see. So now they're PCI compliant.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Check.
no, no, you're a long ways from that. I mean, we've had extensive conversations with clients about this does not make you compliant. This is one small test. That's like going to your front door and jiggling the handle and going, oh, this house is absolutely locked down tight. All the windows are up, the back door's open, everything. The front door just happened to be locked. Okay.
Because we never use it.
Right.
Yeah, but you're right. It's exactly the way that you're looking at it is wrong when you're looking at it from that approach. And again, this is looking at security awareness for the organization as a whole. And if you don't have written policies and procedures, it's kind of hard for them to even know what they are. And compliance focused, he's even pointing out they don't know what the policies are.
Right.
So again, you've probably just gotten the template, focused on compliance, and said, check that box off.
Yeah. We actually changed our conversation around that. You and I both did about 2 years ago, probably, where we decided to, we're just not going to talk about compliance anymore. We're going to talk about privacy and security because that's what we're really focused on attaining is a culture of privacy and security. And since then, I think it has really helped because you're not coming in and saying we're going to get you compliant. We're going to come in and look at your privacy and security programs and get you up to speed to where you are. They're again talking about maturity.
Yeah, that's a more mature approach. Ha ha, more mature approach. But it is. It's exactly the way that we're looking at it is, as I say over and over, we worry about doing the right thing and building a privacy and security program that's effective and prepared. and we use compliance to prove we're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And that's really what it's all about is compliance is saying this is the bare minimum you should be doing. And we've got tons of people that can't even meet that bare minimum. As you said, the floor. They're in the, not the basement, the sub-basement.
They're underground. They're the moles. The mole people.
But it's just as, some of these mature, I got to get tongue-tied at some point. It seems to be all the ways in the middle. My brain gets so happy about what we're talking about. So these maturity models, some of them like that C2, M2, and others can get really complicated.
R2D2. Oh, that's wrong one.
Wrong one. But they get somewhat complicated and they start digging really deep. And I mean, some of them are way down into very, very specific lists. I'm not saying go there. I'm saying start here with something as simple as the SANS one. If you start with the new one, or the small one rather, and look at your program honestly, then you'll get somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got to start somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
And ask these questions and provide honest answers to yourself instead of, yeah, I'm not going to look in the room. The kid cleaned the room. He said he cleaned the room. Oh, my God. That's the older sibling. He said he cleaned it. I didn't look. Being the older sibling, I'm aware of how that works.
I don't know. As a parent with 5 kids, I'm like, yeah, he cleaned it. I don't want to look.
If he's the one that did it. Yeah. But going back all the way back. Now here, this is episode 206 that we are recording right now.
Mm-hmm.
Episode 4 was how do you eat an elephant?
Wow. One bite at a time.
One bite at a time. And it's the same approach that we have always encouraged people to follow is don't get overwhelmed, pick something and just start working. Right.
Yeah. Because overwhelm is definitely something we see in the boot camp.
No,
so we have to start out, talking about, just, I understand it's going to be a fire hose, but you really got to just back up. Don't hyperventilate and pass out on us. But you'll get
name it and claim it.
Yeah. But, the number of medical practices that falsely think that they are HIPAA compliant is staggering, as we brought up. And since effective privacy and security is an ongoing process and not a checklist, I suggest that you call Cardin because they don't just assess your situation and leave you with a report. They do absolutely work with you to make sure that you get your stuff done all along the way. Never do they leave your side. So if you want to get a hold of Cardin, which by the way is Donna's company, you can reach Cardin at 678-292-5001. Again, 678-292-5001 or visit cardinhq.com to learn more.
Yes, I am the Don.
Yeah. All righty. Now, how are we going to do this maturity stuff when it comes to risk management planning?
Well, this is where I really, got into the more discussions about this. And, we've got some fairly large organizations and I'm like, we do risk analysis different than what you've ever done.
Yeah, we actually do it.
And they're, well, why do you want to do that? Why? Just do it. And then you'll see the difference.
Mm-hmm.
And we go through the standard process, identify where all your PHI is, look for all the threats and vulnerabilities, make a list of those. We work off of some standardized lists that are also augmented by experience of, I can't believe that happened to a client, put it on the list.
Yeah.
The toilet blew up. Seriously, the toilet blew up. Whatever that is. But, it's internal flooding or whatever it is that's on the list. And each of those you say, what's the likelihood of it occurring? And what would the impact be if it did?
Mm-hmm.
And we used to then say, now that you see that, what do you consider the risk to your business? But people didn't understand those decisions. So now there's math and I need math. I got to sit and play with formulas and calculations for a very long time until the math would work out to something that was reasonable. So we do that, which is where most people stop. We then add to that and say, well, what's your plan? What are you going to do about this? Are you going to avoid it? Are you going to accept it and say the risk is so low, it's just not going to happen, or I'm just not going to allow that to happen in my business, because some people get confused about the two.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other things are, transfer responsibility by hiring David at Security First IT in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. But hiring, a vendor of some sort to outsource that requirement and protect you, or remove it out of your business so you're not dealing with it. And then, of course, I'm going to control it, which means I got to deal with it somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And once you then make all of those decisions on those risks, then particularly the high risk items we're really worried about now, because you've identified them and now you've said how you're going to deal with them. And then we say, okay, flip to the second page, because now we've taken and we're really worried about the high risk things. And we say, let's check how mature your program is in dealing with that. And in that process is where we're looking at, we used to say, here's a matrix, find where you fit, and gave them some text, and they were supposed to read it. Inevitably, everybody said they were doing great, just like the kid that said the room was clean.
Mm-hmm.
So that wasn't working so well for us. Although, we would talk to them and encourage them to change their opinion because they needed to do more. But again, it's a lot of business decisions. Well, we don't think we're going to do more than that. So that's where they are. And we came up with this new way to do it that said, in order to accomplish any kind of risk management plan, I got to have 3 elements. Training, obviously. If somebody doesn't know what to do or what not to do, then the plan's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Documentation, including policies, procedures, business associate contracts, whatever, those kind of things. And then incident response plan. If my plan isn't going to tell me what to do when these high risk items happen, probably not a good plan.
Right.
So I want to make sure that all my high risk items are somehow accounted for in my instant response plans. And then we say, inky dinky do, a whole bunch more math. I got to play with more formulas. And it calculates then automatically what is your maturity level based on your answers to those 3 elements. And it starts at chaotic or 0, which is, really have nothing, and goes then to informal, reactive, stable, proactive, and optimized. And obviously, I want to get everybody at least to stable, but ultimately where you need to be is proactive.
Right.
Specifically on the high risk items. And then you worry about, some of the other items. So if you say, let's look at the ransomware attack threat, because that's on there and it's going to be high risk for everybody in healthcare. And if you're not considering ransomware as a high risk in healthcare, again, we're probably not for you. So then we would ask you, and you can't completely outsource that. So you've got to control it. You can do some of the things to control it. And we would say, okay, how's your training on that? How's your documentation? How's your incident response? And there's populated answers. You have to pick from one of those. So if you answered that your training was undocumented or you had training, but you couldn't prove you did it, or you have no training, and your documentation did not have written policies, procedures, you can prove you were doing anything, and just complete chaos would set in, and your incident response team has never even talked about it, or you've never talked about an incident response team, then we would consider you chaotic because you really have no program to deal with that.
Right.
And so as you move up, and granted, there's areas of your maturity that fall within between these. So let's say I've got the documentation and stuff, but I haven't really done anything else. So the documentation may be at a higher level than the other 2. So I'm improving, and I can show that improvement because of, math. But if I say, let's say just to get to stable, these would be the 3 answers. You would have to be at least this level or higher to get to stable, which would say that I've got documented training for the staff. It's quite comprehensive. Everybody knows what to do. There are written policies, procedures, plans, documentation exists. There's proof of regular reviews, and all the BAAs I need are in place. And then on the incident response, the team's been assigned and they are working, to determine those roles and responsibilities consistently.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a fairly stable program.
Right.
I might want incident response to be a little bit better than that. But if I have a team and they've been thinking about it, they're going to be more prepared. So I've got to say I'm at least stable. They're not going to go, what do we do?
Yeah.
Ultimately, I want you to be higher than that, or at least, have a lot more detail in place. But if you're, starting at chaotic, it's hard to go to proactive. So just baby steps. You got to make progress. It is not going to get easier.
No.
And that's the thing we keep telling people. Well, I'm just waiting until I get this done, and then I can focus on it. I'm waiting until, the sun shines differently and it turns orange one day, and then I'll know I'm ready.
Yeah. Well, the longer you wait, the harder it gets anyway.
All right.
You especially if your business is growing, or you're bringing new people in, or your technology is changing, but all that, everything your business does to move forward makes it more complicated to get this done. So waiting makes it worse.
Oh yeah, big time. And it also shows that you're falling towards more of that willful neglect than, more towards the I'm actually trying.
Right.
Because if you're in the chaotic stage and the no security awareness stage, or whatever maturity level you look at, if you're at that level, you're falling towards where those fines are not going to be so cheap, number one. But more importantly is you're wide open. You may be under attack and not even know it. You may have data being exfiltrated and not even know it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
If everybody saw where they came out and indicted some Chinese hackers for the Anthem attack. And when you read the indictment, it tells exactly what they did and the steps that they went through and how they moved the data and exfiltrated it. And it went through all of these servers, but they would do one little piece and then they'd wait. Apparently they were in there for months before they even did the first little lateral move. So it's not something where all of a sudden there's going to be an explosion and then suddenly you'll know they just opened the door. No, they snuck in the little doggy door. They've been in there looking around for a long time by the time you see it.
Yeah. And that's assuming that they even have the ability to see it.
True that. Well, at some point, somebody notices something, you hope.
Yeah.
And it's you, not the FBI.
Yeah. Well, you almost hope that you get ransomware only because when you have ransomware.
Well, yeah. Now, unfortunately, it's what they drop on their way out the door.
Yeah.
A lot of times now. We're seeing that more often now than we ever have. Mm-hmm. So if you're hit with ransomware, don't be shocked to find out the ransomware didn't cause you a problem. We're able to deal with that and restore and whatnot. It did wreak some havoc. But, oh, by the way, the forensics guys found there's all this other stuff that happened.
Yeah. We haven't seen it in a while, mainly because we don't allow clients to do this. But years ago, I actually ran into a problem where people were buying computers like on eBay and stuff like that. And they were coming in and it would, the computer's been completely wiped clean. It's got a fresh install of Windows and all that. But what they don't tell you is they've already compromised the machine and it's already been hacked and everything's already there in place for them to be able to get into your systems. And so you get it. It's, it looks like a brand new machine or at least a refurbished machine, and you set it up in your business, connect everything to it. Everything, quote unquote, works fine.
Yeah.
But
you just invited them in and gave them a seat at the table.
Yeah. Nobody had to hack you. You just bought the machine already compromised.
Yeah. So if you have one of those machines, run and plug it right now.
Quite frankly, I don't know that even off the shelf somewhere at a store, I would even trust them anymore these days.
Yeah. Yeah. There's too many hands in the.
Well, they're proving constantly that the supply chain is under attack, and what better way to infiltrate businesses than get into the supply chain of the PCs and systems that they have coming out. So,
oh yeah, they're getting in through the hardware, the operating system, and the applications.
Yep.
So if you're just thinking, all I got to worry about is my antivirus running, again, this is what you did 10 years ago. That's not what you do today.
No.
And if your program is the same program you had 10 years ago, maybe a little bit different, if it's not current, you're not protected and you're likely under attack. And you may not even have any idea. If you're lucky, you're not. So all of these things that we're talking about are specific threats and they're specific approaches. And there's a wide variety of them that look at the organization as a whole. And there's this one chart, and I've referenced it before. It was done way back in 2014, back before we were even doing the podcast. And it's done by the Enterprise Strategy Group. And they did this matrix where it would kind of look at the whole organization, and they were trying to break you down. You would fall under one of three categories of organizations. You would be, where it comes to cybersecurity, that is, it would be basic, progressing, or advanced.
Okay.
You're going to be one of the three. So it's not one that has a lot of nuance. There's not a lot of, like on ours where we had to add medium high and medium low because people couldn't decide between medium and high and medium and low.
But the bad thing is when I look at this chart, I don't see a lot of people who even hit basic.
Well, yeah. Well, that's why I say, for most practices and most companies that we get called in on, now granted, if we've partnered with them for a while, you'll see that change. But if you just look at the category of, they look at it, the philosophy towards cybersecurity, how the people are staffed to deal with cyber threats, the processes in place, and the technology that's used to determine things. But I can walk into any organization, and I know you and I've talked about this many times. If you know the philosophy of leadership, you know the status of the organization. And the philosophy of leadership is going to be, well, it worked 10 years ago, and they truly have no idea.
Well, you're talking about, having a false sense of security or just a false sense, period. We walk in a lot of times and people say, well, we have, our computer's running fine. Everything's great. We have a router, we have a Wi-Fi, we have all these things, and we've not had any issues. But what they don't understand is that doesn't mean anything with security. Right. Just because you can print, you can get online, has nothing to do with your security. And in fact, and I may have already mentioned this in a past podcast, but we brought on a medical client not long ago, and that absolute phrase came out of his mouth as he was signing his managed service contract, is that we don't have any problems, but I want to get you guys in here so that we don't have any. Great. Sounds great, right? The problem is, as soon as we installed our security tools, everything went crazy because he had already been breached for over a year.
See, therein lies the problem, people. Right there is that you don't know what you don't know. And that's why we want to do these maturity questionnaires, is to say, oh, by the way, the owners ask if we're doing HIPAA and you say yes. Well, you need to educate them a little bit more. So that was the thing that was on this maturity philosophy. A basic organization sees cybersecurity as a necessary evil. That's where most groups are.
Right.
And when we start working with them, then it becomes more integrated into the business. It's not something you just deal with on the side. You actually are making plans and you're doing things with it. But ultimately, as we've said before, cybersecurity is part of the culture, is an advanced organization. So if you want to build yourself as, cutting edge from a technology standpoint, yet you don't consider cybersecurity part of your culture, there's a disconnect.
Right.
You can't have one and not the other.
Yep. Another thing to bring out in this, and I have this conversation a lot with people, is that when you look at this matrix, there's three different areas it looks at. It looks at the people, the process, and the technology. And I hammer this into people all the time that think technology is a solution for cybersecurity, and it is not. It is part of the solution. But if you can have the best technology in the world, but if you're not addressing the people and the processes, you will fail.
And that is why we ask about multiple elements in the maturity matrix. I can have one piece that's really great, but if the other ones aren't in place, those are your gaping hole.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause we have, prospects or new clients, and they say, yeah, bring in all this great, wonderful security technology that you have. And then I'll say, okay, great. What are we going to do about training your people? Oh, we don't need to do that. I'm like, okay, you'll fail.
Yeah.
And you'll eventually get breached and hacked. And, well, what do you mean? We're paying you for all this technology. I'm sorry, but you only locked the front door.
Uh-huh. People can still unlock it and let them in.
Right. That's it. If your people are going to let them in, technology's not going to stop that. A lot of times.
I have to give them the ability to let people in. We want them to let your friends in, you know? So either they have no ability to open the door, period, or they're going to let somebody in that's wrong and they just get tricked. So that's where I got to maturity. And there's the answer to your question. Why are we talking about it?
All right.
There you go.
That's a long answer to a short question.
But I did bring into trying to look at it without this evaluation of the program. You're not measuring it. And as Peter Drucker is well known to say that, if anybody's ever studied his management philosophies, which are from the earlier part of the 20th century, and they are, if not the same, they are more pertinent today in a lot of ways. And he said, what gets measured gets managed.
Yep.
Well, if I'm managing cybersecurity, I've got to know how I'm doing or I'm not managing it. But then he also adds, management is doing things right. Leadership is doing the right things. And that gets us back to the philosophy and looking at the security program and the maturity of the organization as a whole in how they at least address or consider security and privacy as being part of who they are.
I agree.
Well, that was a long way to I agree.
You've done a fantastic job of being mature. Showing me how to assess that.
I know. I can't wait, to have some moment where we can just do something stupid as soon as we turn off.
Yeah, I'll give it about 2.8 seconds after we cut this off. All right, so that is our show today, folks. Remember to follow us and share us out on social media. Please share us out. We are absolutely shooting for a goal, and I haven't brought it up yet, but I'll mention it maybe next podcast. But we have a goal of certain number of listeners per month, because the show is really doing very, very well, hitting some numbers, but we want to hit another number. And
we need another number.
So, but I'll bring that up in another episode. But anyway, share it out and rate us on the podcasting app. Keep listening, keep spreading the word. We absolutely appreciate it. So remember for Donna and myself that HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.